immensely pleased to be able to have some time to interact with you. Normally, an interaction of this nature, I would tend to speak on what the government has done in the last 10 years, why it is important for Prime Minister Modi to have won the third term, in the sense of why a stable government which comes out with transparent policies and completely rejects corruption is so important for India as India stands where it stands now. And also because we have given ourselves a very, very ambitious goal that by 2047 India would be a developed country. So in fact you need some government which understands what it takes to deliver India to that goal. And therefore, Prime Minister getting a third term just for the sake of continuity, for stability, is important, was important. So one or two things I will look into my pad to give you hard data. But other than that, I'm not going to have to refer to this because, matter of fact, today India also faces a lot of external challenges. So before I get to talking about the challenges, I want to say what several governments could not achieve over several decades. I'm not for a minute suggesting that they didn't intend. The intentions could have been, yes, we need to do, yes, we have to deliver, yes, we have to give fundamental, primary facilities for people. But the delivery was not efficient, and therefore, in spite of several slogans, actually delivery not happening in the ground meant people were where they were. But in the last 10 years, what primarily will have to be delivered for every citizen without any differentiation, without any discrimination, has been delivered. Whether you're talking of good accessible roads, both for urban and rural areas, whether you're talking about everybody getting at least a pakka house, small, whatever be it, they don't remain in thatched roof houses. Everybody gets electricity and water. Some states did have it already and some others did not, many others did not. And in some others where majority of the part of the state were covered, there were pockets where it hadn't reached. So saturate everything. Give electricity, give drinking water, give water at home through taps. So these are probably sitting in Italy or any of the European Union countries. People would probably wonder, can there be such things now in the 21st century? And since all of us are Indians and we know that there were some pockets of India which were desperately left without attending to these, so they've been covered. Moreover, institutionalized credit is something which is very important. So bank accounts were open, everybody was given access to banks, everybody was given security-free credit, meaning if you go take a loan in a bank, you will have to give some security. Your gold, your land, your house, or some kind of an asset which will stand by the bank in case you fail to service your loan. But for the small, medium entrepreneurs or for small individuals who want to come and start a small business, to get that kind of a security is impossible. They should depend on their parents, or they should depend on a spouse, or they should ask a friend. But for these small loans, Prime Minister Modi said, please banks ensure you will give the loan, I will stand the guarantee, meaning government will stand the guarantee. And that's made a lot of difference for very small people who want to do their own business. And there are sections of Indian society who, for sheer bargaining, absence of bargaining power, have never been included in loans. For instance, the street vendors in our towns who come with the push carts, sell fruits, vegetables, flowers, have never never had the access to credit from institutions. He designed the program saying Swandhi, so that street vendors who are authorized by the local municipality, that they are in the street, they've been in the street, they are street vendors. They were given security fee, concessional loans. So section by section, people who have been denied access to banks have all been given access to banks, and because that was actually facilitated because during 2014 when Jan Dhan Yojana, meaning inclusion in financial inclusion, open a bank account for anyone who does not have an account and give them that, after a couple of months, watch how they operate their account and start lending to them. That program was digitally also KYC. And as a result, during COVID, we had an official way in which we could put money into these people's accounts, which many of the developed countries could not do because they were posting checks and the checks would reach them. They didn't have money when they most needed it. So the rapid 10-year development, if I were to say one or two examples of what is the size and scale of these schemes, some of them cover population whose size is far bigger than even some countries' total population. So for one scheme, we cover this many number of people whose size itself is far higher than some of the advanced economies' population. So scaling up is one thing in which India has achieved quite a big difference. Just putting the numbers before you, before I talk about the challenges. We've certainly risen to become the 5th largest economy. We've already touched 3.9 lakh trillion, 3.9 trillion US dollars as of 24-25, and we expect to be the 3rd largest economy by 28-29 financial year. And by that time, the estimates say that we'll at least be 5.696 trillion US dollar. The growth in the size of the economy will be that much. Few other numbers just for you to know. The investment in the digital public infrastructure has actually given us a big strength in that the payments are all now happening through digitization. People are not usually using cash. Yes, of course, people still use cash where they want to, but largely people can live without using cash, mostly any part of the country. As a result, the UPI, the Unified Payment Interface, has grown exponentially. It handles 1,800 crore transactions worth 24 lakh crores just in the month of March 2025. Only 1 month, 1,800 crore transactions. And the value of those transactions are 24 lakh crore. And you can therefore imagine the robustness with which UPI functions. I spoke to you about the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan account, meaning opening of bank accounts. 55.17 crore people have been given account. And today, in their accounts, I remember at that time I was a Minister of State holding additional charge of finance as well as commerce. Jaitley was my senior minister, I was under him as Minister of State. At that time when Jan Dhan account was opened up, domain experts said, government is probably doing a mistake because these are zero balance accounts. They wouldn't have any balance left. Who's going to service them? Will the bank be able to put up with the cost of servicing them? Why do you want to open? So a lot of negative comments. Today, after covering 55.17 crore people to have accounts, collectively those accounts own as balance 2.614 lakh crores in their deposits. They have a zero balance, right, to start with. Access to credit, good business, you've established yourself, with an account in your bank, their savings in their account, meaning savings as in balance, totally of these 55 crore people is 2.614 lakh crores. Okay, then you move over to seeing some areas in the country in 2014 could get only 12 hours of electricity. They were the worst affected ones. Today, they get 22.6 hours of electricity, still not 24/7, but they will get it sooner. Then, in order to have smoke-free kitchen, get everybody to use healthy source of cooking material, Ujjwala Yojana was started, subsidized cylinder giving, cooking gas giving. Today, 10 crore people get Ujjwala scheme, they covered under it. Starts free, you get a cylinder free, and then the cooking platform and everything else is given free. Post that, you start getting money for each cylinder as subsidy. Under that, 10 crore people are covered. 100 million toilets have been built for the poorest of the poor who did not have that facility. 5 lakh rupees per year medical cover is given. They refer to it as insurance, but I want to make it clear here. There is no insurance for the person to pay any premium or whatever. Government takes care of everything. When you are ill, you just go admit yourself in the hospital. No papers to be shown, no cash to be paid. Up to 5 lakh rupees per year, that year, you get treatment free. You don't need to show any paper, you don't need to prove yourself, nothing, and you've not paid anything as premium because it is given by them. So that covers 55 crore people in the country. 55 crore already. Since you're all abroad, holding the flag of India high, the kind of emergency response mechanism that Prime Minister Modi has developed so that no one Indian affected anywhere should suffer. And just recall Operation Rahat, which happened in 2015, rescuing people. Operation Samudra Setu, Vande Bharat Mission 2020, Operation Devi Shakti 2021, Operation Ganga 2022 reflect our government's commitment to ensure that no Indian anywhere. And the last, which you would probably recollect, is the one in Ukraine during the war, where students had to be airlifted. But not from one place. They couldn't even get out of their houses. We had to speak with both the governments to say, please hold on till such a time we take away our students to the nearest port of call and from there. That is the extent to which Prime Minister Modi has used his connection with every foreign leader for the benefit of our citizens. I'm not getting to talking about the other data, but the extent, the scope, and also the scale of everything that we do is something which is a subject matter when you go to international forum. G20 presidency in 2023, India's presidency. Repeatedly, every minister of the G20 would ask you, how did you achieve this digital payment interface? It now runs everywhere. Every dignitary who comes to India goes to some street vendor to see if he's coconut water selling fellow also gives you the Narayal Pani with a QR code kept. So it has not stopped the rural people from getting on board, or language has not been a hindrance because that actually is available in respective languages, any number of languages spoken in the country. So that is how in the last 10 years, the fundamental amenities, access to credit, encouraging entrepreneurs, startups, you know the number, probably a lot of people have spoken to you about startups. More than 1,80,000 startups have been registered with the ministry. And you know, even in 2023, nearly 111 of those startups became unicorns. Unicorn is some startup which has got a valuation of 100 billion, if I know the number right.
1 billion. 1 billion.
1 billion. So they reach 1 billion, and if they valued at that, they call the unicorn. And after that, there is a stage where they become even better and so on. So these are not possible unless the ecosystem benefits from government's policies. Carefully, every year before the budget, we have interactions with everybody to make sure which section needs more support. Like the way medium, small industries were supported during the COVID. No one industry was led to collapse. They were all supported through, again, a sovereign guarantee. They will not collapse, they wouldn't go into liquidation, they will not remove anybody from job, they were given assistance. And after the lockdown was lifted, they were taken care of because the banks had to understand where they were and supplement their requirement and so on. So because we came up with a sovereign guarantee scheme about 3 lakh crores worth, it is only from last year, if at all, anybody would have invoked the sovereign guarantee if they had failed. Minuscule, actually minuscule is the percentage where invocation has happened, which means failures hadn't happened and therefore nobody thought it relevant for invoking the guarantee. So India's robustness is not something which I'm talking about from upar se. Ground level people are doing their business well. I'm not saying, oh, they've reached the perfect level. No, there's still a lot more work to do. But you see, unless they are doing well, your GST collection every month will not grow the way it is growing. So every month today, GST collection has become an indicator of how well the Indian economy is doing. People ask on first, hey, what's happened to GST? How much debt have you really grown? Or is the economy stagnating? So every month the GST figure has become an indicator of how well the economy is doing. A couple of days ago, the Reserve Bank of India released the figure of how and where we are in terms of foreign exchange reserve. 688 billion is what we have. So India's macroeconomic, and of course the inflation figures have come down drastically, close to the forbearance level which we have given in the parliament, as that's a level below which we maintain the inflation. So with all this said, fastest growing economy for the last 4 years, continuously the same 6 point something, and there are ministers who talk with me, the finance ministers, saying, oh, we have managed it. Really managed to reach 6 point because they are economists. I'm not comparing myself with the developed economy and matching myself, but in terms of just the growth in the GDP, we are steadily keeping that fastest growing economy tag, whereas many economies which want to reach somewhere are still not able to come over to 1% or even more than 1% growth. So there is a lot of energy in our economy, but it's not without challenges. Whether it is the external challenge of the tariff, whether it is the external challenge of our traditional markets losing demand, meaning they're not anymore able to lift their consumption. And as a result, our exports, which have to come here, suffer because the consumption levels are almost stabilized or probably even falling. So we have to look at newer markets to expand. But because our domestic market itself is large, we are able to see that production finds its course within the Indian market. So is our saving. Normally our savings have always been in banks. Today, because of better governance in companies, transparency in the way in which they govern, and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs puts out the data about every company, because as soon as they submit the annual report, it's uploaded and everybody can see each company and their functioning style. So since 2020, the retail investor in Indian stock markets have actually shown that risk-taking ability. And therefore, when they invest in the stock markets, our companies do well because the larger the retail participation, the stock market is also able to, in a way, offset any of the international flow of funds going out or coming in as and when they choose to go out. So if there is a rush of FIIs going out, the Indian retail investment bulk is there, so unlike earlier, the VIX, as they say, the volatility index, doesn't really shiver or drop or go up or go down that drastically. So Indian investors are also getting democratized. It is widening, the base is widening, not just the institutional investor. So in this kind of a robustness coming into the Indian economy, the challenges outside, whether it is the tide of war, whether it is consumption coming down, demand coming down, whether the global interest rates being where they are also going to be challenges for us to face, address. The more the international institutions, such as the World Trade Organization or the UN bodies, don't any longer have that zest in them. You will have to have bilateral arrangements to keep our relationships going, because multilateral trade regimes are probably not happening as much as before. We are working on getting FTAs done with many countries, with the European Union. The FTA, those of you who are here in Italy, will look forward to have the FTA with the EU completed. Trade ministers busy with that as well. Hopefully we'll be able to conclude it. As opening remarks, not more than this, but I think that gives a picture of where we are. And I'm sure all of you are keeping the Indian flag flying high. And I think one line which the ambassador said is very important. Indian diaspora anyway is held in great respect. Indian diaspora anywhere is actually seen as a very constructive, good, positive contributor to the respective economies where they are. And as a result, you bring immense pride to India because of the contribution you're making as law-abiding citizens, as citizens who care and identify yourself with the economy where you are, and equally, culturally and otherwise remain connected with your motherland. And therefore, for all the brilliant role that you're doing as culture ambassadors, as citizens who are absolutely grounded, as citizens who don't bring any cause for concern for the country in which you're living, you are doing an immense sacrifice in terms of your own contribution, but at the same time, the responsibility that you hold on your shoulders is really valued. And I feel very proud every time I meet Indian diaspora, wherever I go, because the kind of energy they show, the responsibility that they carry, and their performance makes you feel really proud. And when you go back to the country, you're able to say, look, I found these people there, and I had an interaction with them. And they make you feel so proud and happy, because you're contributing at the same time, remembering and keeping the live connection with the country. So all the very best and appreciation to you. And that bridge, which is so important between Italy and India, is so much you who are the functioning bridge between the two countries. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.